I met Anastasia at my brother's wedding amid a flurry of greetings and niceties. The weekend was filled with social encounters, making it impossible to identify exactly when we met. However, it appears that I made a good impression, as my new sister-in-law informed me later over the phone. After several missed connections, I finally had the nerve to ask her out. My name is Lonnie, and I have never been the most outgoing person. Through high school and college, I preferred to avoid love interests in favor of intellectual successes. I dedicated myself to my studies, achieving honors at every level, including my master's degree, which took 3 years to finish while working and attending evening sessions. My specialty is in facilities management, and I frequently work remotely from my home office, using internet tools for virtual meetings. When Anastasia entered my life, I was immediately charmed. Despite being overshadowed by her more conventionally stunning sister, Julianne, Anastasia's quiet charm and tenacity won me over. However, her family, particularly her mother and sister, exercised considerable power over her life, making it difficult for her to escape. As someone with little experience in romantic relationships, I felt unprepared to help Anastasia navigate these familial dynamics. After a couple of Saturday night escapades, Anastasia's situation improved quickly. Our dates expanded to 2 and eventually 3 times per week. About 3 months into our relationship, we discussed exclusivity before moving on to intimacy. That first night will always be a vivid memory for me. Although none of us was novice, our anxiety and quest for perfection gave us the appearance of newcomers. We got engaged on the anniversary of our first date. The lavish celebration of our wedding revealed that I had married into an affluent family. Neither of us discussed a prenuptial arrangement. Family reunions have never been enjoyable for me. Despite his impressive engineering credentials, Jeremy, Anastasia's father, kept a somber manner. He rarely engaged in conversation, while not blatantly disrespectful. He never made an effort to include me in family activities. As a result, I kept my distance from him, as my primary purpose was to follow Anastasia. In contrast, her mother, Elaine, emanated a different vibe. Despite her position as a legal assistant, she exuded authority, much like a Supreme Court nominee might. Elaine seemed to like talking and rarely paused for stillness. With her father as a lawyer, she expressed a strong interest in my career, albeit frequently in a derogatory manner, preferring questions that belittled my occupation above actual comprehension. Julianne and her husband Chuck appeared perfect in front of the family. Chuck was a vice president at a publicly traded corporation, and Julianne worked as a regional manager for a clothing chain. Both represent success with their rich lifestyles and polished appearances. Anastasia, on the other hand, wanted not to create waves. Despite managing a steakhouse which misused her undergraduate education in literature, she aspired to write poetry. When we returned home after family events, she tried to console me, despite the disrespect we had received. This gesture alone keeps me from dreading future family gatherings, eagerly anticipating the sumptuous feast that would come. Enduring insults becomes bearable in light of these moments of retribution. Anastasia unexpectedly greeted me at home on Thursday night, dressed in a provocative red teddy. "What is the occasion?" I asked. "Nothing extraordinary. I couldn't help thinking about you." "A girl is entitled to that, right?" Relieved, I responded. "Absolutely." As my jeans slipped down my legs, Anastasia directed my hands to the back of her head, encouraging me to thrust into her mouth. I tensed up as she tightened her hold on my buttocks, and I quickly discharged into her mouth. After washing me off, she brought me to our bedroom, where she told me about her teddy and panties. Her perky breasts still stimulated me, and I swiftly pulled her onto the bed, diving between her legs. Her breathing accelerated, and she encouraged me to take charge. "Make love with me, Lanny, I need you." Anastasia rarely engages in explicit discussion. I can't say it increased my desire, but it surely did not diminish it. She had a nice climax. And shortly after I pleasured her again. She went into the kitchen once she finished cleaning up. We loved our recovery time. Once she returned with a variety of foods. By the time the meal was disappeared, I was once again aroused. This time it resulted in a long, passionate lovemaking session. Complete with nibbles, whispers, and all of the private gestures that lovers exchange. We fell asleep past midnight. I awoke Friday morning feeling energized. I'm leaving Anastasia. Any plans for today? Not really. I'll be following shortly. Love you, I love you too. Our typical Friday evening schedule includes having a lunch, followed by exploring various things around town, such as seeing a play, going dancing, or occasionally engaging in fundraising events. Anastasia usually returns home about an hour before I do. However, her car was not present tonight. Upon entering, everything appeared to be normal. I checked my phone for texts or voicemails, but found nothing. A note on the kitchen counter drew my attention. I'll be returning late on Sunday night. Always remember that I adore you. My thoughts were filled with confusion. There had been no previous mention of a trip or a weekend retreat. I attempted to contact Anastasia's cell phone, but it went directly to voicemail. I sent a text message inquiring where you were. I could feel myself becoming increasingly irritated. What sort of marriage permits one partner to leave without notice or explanation? I contacted her parents, but they refused to share any information they had. Her sister, Julianne, also claimed ignorance. It's hard to think clearly while you're angry. What possible justification could exist? I could not come up with anything. Desperate for answers, I approached our neighbors, Tom and Sally. Sally, Anastasia's close friend, denied knowing anything. I went to the gym and pushed myself on the elliptical machine, hoping to quiet my racing mind. The exercise contributed to the dissipation. My wrath and exhaustion began to cool my rage. After a quick shower, I returned to a quiet, dark home. I poured myself a few shots of whiskey. While sitting alone in the silent living room, every scenario in my mind pointed to Anastasia being unfaithful. The strong passion from last night appeared to be a guilt-driven attempt to clear her conscience. I awoke in my recliner at around 3 a.m. I'm not sure when I fell asleep. After checking my phone and discovering nothing new, I took some painkillers to obtain a couple more hours of sleep. By Saturday morning, with no calls, texts, or emails, I had settled on a course of action. I spent approximately an hour consulting with private investigators before finding a company that appeared trustworthy and available. To my amazement, a young woman stood on my porch. "Good morning, Mr. Dickerson. My name is Renee, and I am here to install the monitoring devices." I reminded myself to avoid prejudices, while Renee expertly fitted the devices. Despite her appearance, which included short hair, no makeup, baggy trousers, and a sports bra under her t-shirt, she was skilled and possessed all of the essential tools and equipment. I restated my surveillance expectations to her, unsure whether she would be involved beyond the installation at work. One of the projects placed on hold was a thorough examination of our West Coast facilities system. I had a 1-hour video chat with my boss and the management team from the West Coast. The logistics plan sounded plausible, so I used my expense account credit cards to purchase a round-trip ticket. I packed my bags and drove to the airport. I asked my supervisor to keep my location private, owing to continuing personal concerns. He, being divorced, quickly agreed to Anastasia's return late on Sunday. She will find my note. I may return sooner than anticipated. I picked up my rented automobile just before midnight on Saturday. Despite my relentless attempts, I was unable to reach Anastasia. I accessed the new security system and viewed the live stream from my home's cameras. After reviewing the voice recordings, I discovered only 2 occasions of my home phone ringing. While checking my voicemail, I realized that no caller had left a message. Sunday went slowly with my thoughts, consumed by Anastasia's strange journey, which only helped to weaken my admiration for her. What kind of fool does she think I am? Does she really think she can disappear for 2 days? And expect everything to be okay with a kiss and a hug? I anticipated she would return only to deliver the dreaded "I'm leaving you" conversation. When I turned on my phone on Monday morning, I finally got proof that Anastasia was still alive. It was a text message with no explanation of her location or actions. Time stamped just after midnight. Where are you now? I miss and love you. Really, after disappearing for a full weekend with no word? Is that everything she has to say? I decided not to respond to the message and put my phone on silent as the day progressed. The increasing number of texts and calls revealed that I had not followed the scenario she had envisaged. I didn't study all of the messages until later that day. When I was settled into my hotel room, I tried going through the messages and listening to the voicemails in the order they were received. The first message was a voicemail from Lonnie. I found your note, could you explain what you meant? Then a text arrived. Your office is unaware of your whereabouts. What game are you playing? Another voicemail arrived. Lonnie, if this is about my absence, you're overreacting. I was gone for only 48 hours. A further text was read. If this is what you desire, fine. I'll wait a few hours for your angry tantrum to fade. Will you be home after dinner? There was one more text. I miss and love you. Please let me know you're okay. Reflecting on all of the messages, I understood there was no sorrow on her part. I certainly wasn't being treated like a beloved spouse. I logged in and reviewed the security footage. There was nothing remarkable. She arrived just after midnight and scoured the home for me. When she saw my absence in the garage, where I usually keep my car, she texted me to ask where I was. After returning from the garage, she discovered my note and searched my office and closets. Similar to my earlier failed search for Anastasia, she discovered no hints regarding what I had brought with me. She departed for work at her usual time and returned home about her normal arrival time. The voice recordings only included a few fascinating calls. She called Sally and found out about my impromptu ID visit. When Anastasia asked, I assumed Sally was also clueless. Did Lonnie say where he was going? Anastasia received a mysterious call on her cell phone. Hey, not yet. Are you certain about this? I understand. I need to be patient. There were some unintelligible whispers in the conversation. Overall, I had no compelling reason to contact Anastasia despite my inability to sleep. I must have slept soundly. I awoke to my alarm. On Tuesday morning, I received a voicemail that said, Lonnie, I miss you. I love you. When will your odd conduct end? This was followed by a text apologizing for yelling, expressing anger, and showing care for my well-being. I decided to prolong her doubt by replying, I'm fine. But considering the tone of our recent conversations, I don't intend to return home. I'm turning off my phone for a hectic day. Throughout the day, I felt my phone vibrate, but I disregarded it. Later, in my hotel room after supper, I decided to stage my own play. The first text I received after leaving. The initial voicemail was puzzling. Lonnie, I apologize, but I am unable to explain it. Cannot we move forward? Has she lost her mind, leaving abruptly and refusing to discuss it? Finally, a voicemail arrived with a hint of emotion. I am sorry you are hurt, but you should not be. Please come home. I miss you. I love you. There were a few more texts and voice memos. I decided to proceed with drafting separation paperwork. She departed on Friday, and it is now Tuesday. And she has made no effort to explain her behavior. Something has prompted a shift in her. And I no longer want to have a wife who has been used in this way. I contacted my boss via email to inquire about the divorce attorney he had chosen. After getting the contact information, I sent an introduction email. I accessed the security system and checked the activity record. The only noticeable difference from Monday was a brief period when Anastasia wiped away tears. There were no questionable phone calls to report. I emailed the private investigators demanding an update. When I woke up on Wednesday morning, there was only one text message sent at 2 a.m. waiting for me. Kindly return home. I feel so lonely without you. I love you. During lunch, I spoke with the divorce attorney, who told me that he had all of the necessary documents to begin the separation procedure. I specifically ordered that the papers be served at Anastasia's house to avoid any potential humiliation at her workplace. At least for now. After another very productive day at work, I retired to my hotel room. The private investigator's report depicted Anastasia as an ideal wife, focused on work, handling shopping, and dutifully caring to the home, with no notable visitors or extended lunch breaks. After discussing their rates, I reached an agreement with the PI and agreed to let Renee, an aspiring investigator, intern on my case. After a brief talk, I assigned Renee the responsibility of surveilling Anastasia till the end of the following week, which delighted her. After studying the surveillance footage, I discovered little of relevance, except for one unusual phone call. I will notify you soon. I have additional information. He hasn't returned home in a week. I'm not sure when I'll see him next on Thursday night. As I studied the security tape, I noticed Anastasia drinking heavily and pacing about the house, muttering, "What have I done?" Instead of receiving the enigmatic call, she started it. "Yes, it's me, he is not here. I'm not sure he'll come back. What is your plan now, genius? This isn't what you expected." Their communication went back and forth, but all I could tell was that someone mysterious had persuaded Anastasia to take action. And suddenly things weren't going as planned. I had no idea who the mystery person was. Anastasia's text messages and voicemails were now packed with emotion. But there was still no clue of who, what, where, or why she had been missing for 2 days. I decided not to respond. On Friday night, I was fully aware of when the papers were delivered. My phone started buzzing persistently at 6 p.m., forcing me to turn it off. I decided to investigate the incident by watching surveillance footage. Everything looked normal in the morning. Anastasia appeared lethargic. She was frequently checking her phone. She texted my cell and went about her morning routine. "Please come home." Message. Anastasia arrived home from work at her normal hour and was in the process of making dinner when the doorbell rang. A middle-aged woman stood by the door. Unfortunately, due to the distance, the audio was too faint to understand their talk. After closing the door, Anastasia tore open the package and collapsed to her knees. Her hand covered her mouth. Anastasia recovered her commissary and found her cell phone. She dialed my number several times and became frustrated when I did not answer. Then the calls were terminated without leaving a message. She repeated this process 10 times before writing and sending a lengthy text message. Meanwhile, I decided to turn on my cell phone and read her messages. After doing so, I uncovered messages from Anastasia, her mother, and an unusual phone number. I found Anastasia's text chain and scrolled back to a message from about 6:30 p.m. Lonnie. Please reconsider, I made a horrible mistake. My mother and sister told me that faking to have an affair would revive our passion and force you to fight for me. I spent those 2 days at my mother's apartment. I guarantee I have not been unfaithful and will never jeopardize our marriage. Kindly call me, I love you. I read and reread the message, still unable to fathom the ridiculous scheme she was admitting to. I returned to watching the video. Anastasia was plainly inebriated, sobbing and smashing her fists against the table. She contacted her mother and sister and expressed her emotions to them. They arrived within 10 minutes of each other, hoping to comfort her. Julianne remarked, "He's reasonable. Tell him the truth." Mom, you can vouch for her, right? No, he called on Friday night and I lied to him, claiming we didn't know where Anastasia was. I am no better. He called, but I claimed ignorance. We'll have to admit we lied, Anastasia interjected. Think about it. Do you believe this nonsense? After 15 minutes, Anastasia exploded. Simply get out, you have damaged my marriage. The couple left sheepishly. Anastasia tried contacting me several times before running to the bathroom to puke. Sorting through calls and texts, I couldn't believe her mother and Julianne were spreading such garbage. What kind of delusion were they under to believe this strategy could ever work? Deciding to face the situation, I sent a text. Anastasia, your interpretation of the truth means nothing to me. My interpretation of events is all that matters. I hope your time with your lovers was worthwhile. If I can't get past this in 90 days, as stated by the separation agreement, I'll file for divorce. I struggled to fall asleep and woke up late on Saturday. It wasn't until 9 a.m. that I finally got out of bed. After taking a shower, shaving, and dressing casually, I went to the cafe to enjoy the weekend special. While there, I sorted through and erased certain texts, determining that there was no fresh ground to cover. All 3 texts stayed to their story of aiming to make me jealous, which I found astonishing. Did I really desire a wife who would use such tactics? Anastasia's emotional message weighed heavily on my mind. I could sense her sadness as she seemed to accept the pain she had caused. Following breakfast, I sat in the park, trying to create a strategy. Eventually, I decided to call Anastasia Lonnie and ask her not to leave me. She pleaded. Anastasia slowed down, consider starting with, "Good morning, sweetheart." "Good morning, sweetheart. I am so relieved you called. Please believe me when I say that I don't and have never had a lover." "Oh, dear, you wanted me to believe you did. And now I do, but it's too early for me to believe that you don't. It's conceivable you and your family made up this bizarre story to conceal your affair." She gasps. "But no, God, it is not true. Please believe me. What do I need to do?" "Anastasia, you began this. I refuse to be married to a wife who cheats on her lover. Contact me when you believe you can reclaim my trust. We will chat later." I hung up without waiting for a response, putting my phone on vibration after a day of browsing, swap meetings, and garage sales. I returned to my hotel room after enjoying a barbecue dinner. Messages from Elaine, Julianne, and Anastasia flooded my phone. Eventually, one of Anastasia's texts drew my attention. Anastasia proposed, "I am willing to take a polygraph test if you believe it will assist." After a few hours of thought, I responded, "I believe that is a good idea. I should be back home by next Saturday and would like to be present." Thank you, she replied. I will make arrangements, and just so you know, I am confident I will pass. My only error was listening to my mother and sister. She then went on to make further suggestions. I'll make an appointment for STD testing. Even though I've only been intimate with you, I'd like to clear up any doubts you may have. This week was a wake-up call for me. I'm thinking about seeing a marriage counselor to break free from my family's influence. Have the lawyer draft a post-nuptial agreement. I found myself agreeing with her proposals. And by the time I went to bed, I had started to believe her. When I woke up, I decided to take an active part. Even though she hadn't asked, I decided to volunteer for all of the examinations as well. I didn't want her to know I was looking for revenge sex. The idea of a polygraph seems promising. So much so that I considered adding a condition to our post-nuptial agreement. If any of us had any doubts, we could use the polygraph provision and both be retested. Anastasia's Sunday morning texts were positive. So I called her. Good morning, Lonnie, how did you sleep? Much better, I appreciate your suggestions. Schedule appointments for both of us. I'd want to underline that you can trust me. I've prepared a series of questions for your polygraph tester. You can make your own for mine. In addition, I've created a joint list for both examiners. If we both pass with flying colors, we can move on. I've asked our lawyer to prepare a post-nuptial agreement. Also, involve me in the marriage counseling, because I have certain difficulties to address. What are your thoughts? Anastasia was in tears. I apologize for what I have done to you. Thank you for giving me this chance. You will not regret it. I love you. The following week went by swiftly. I would contact Anastasia whenever I had a free moment. We had arranged appointments for Saturday. The polygraph exam and findings were completed in less than an hour. We both responded to each question correctly. One of the regular questions elicited laughter from the audience. Do you always think of your partner while you make love? We both said truthfully, no. I deactivated the security gadgets that night, reassured by the polygraph findings. We had unprotected intercourse. 2 weeks later, we received entirely negative STD test results. We've been visiting a marriage counselor once a week for the past 12 weeks. Everything appears to be going fine thus far. After weighing the risks and rewards, I formulated a retaliatory strategy. Anastasia had no communication with Elaine or Julianne today. Do you understand? Yes, it's crystal clear. Will you fill me in later? Afterward, it is totally my duty. And no physical injury, just shame. Good luck with it. I genuinely care for you. I understand I adore you too. I went to my office and called Renee, who was ready for what was coming. Darling, I said to Anastasia's mother. Elaine, this is Lonnie. How are you doing today? I'm fine, Lonnie. What is the reason behind your call? I hope you could join me for lunch today. I think I can. When and where? So I have a gift card from Amy's. Around lunchtime, we went to an elegant French restaurant in the downtown Hilton's penthouse. Dress smartly. Does that suit you? I will be there. Excellent. See you at noon. Please keep this meeting discreet. You will understand later. One target down, one more to go. I scheduled Julianne's arrival at 12:15 p.m. I called Renee again to provide the information. And I also emailed her images of Elaine and Julianne. Renee emailed me some films around 10 a.m. to consider. One of them captured the lunch meeting. And we'd use one as the trailer. I found amusement in the one I chose for 12.25. Renee forwarded an email with links to 3 movies she had planned for her associate A young man named Marty to meet my in-laws. The original film and edited versions were submitted to me for evaluation. Elaine was dressed provocatively in the first video, but I'd never seen her that way before. She was obviously lovely and proportionate. When she entered the lobby, Marty, who towered above her, brandished a sign with her name. She approached him. "Elaine, yes, that is me." "Excellent. I'm here to accompany you to the restaurant." He extended his arm and Elaine linked hers to his. While they waited for the elevator, he leaned forward to smell her neck. "You smell beautiful again. I'm so delighted you could make it today." Elaine caught his gaze, flushing. The elevator arrived, and when the doors closed, they were transported to the penthouse restaurant. Marty came from the elevator moments later, this time holding a Julianne sign. If I found Elaine attractive, Julianne easily exceeded her. When Marty extended his arm, Julianne not only linked hers, but also leaned into it. "You smell beautiful again. I am so delighted you could make it today." Julianne melted beneath the comment, engaging in playful banter with Marty. As the elevator door closed according to the original tape, I opened the edited films and watched in amazement. Both clips were virtually identical. Marty extended his elbow and said, "You smell lovely again. I am so delighted you could make it today." As the elevator door closed, the scene changed to the chosen trailer. Marty exited from a bedroom, quickly zipping up his pants. A brawl lay on the bedroom floor, grabbing the attention of the cameraman. Marty said, "Hey, what are you doing?" and raced towards the camera. The clip terminated abruptly, lasting only 22 seconds. How much harm may a quick video cause? We were about to learn just a few keystrokes. Email number 1 was sent to Anastasia's father, Jeremy, with Elaine copied in at the same time. Email number 2 was sent to Julianne's husband, Chuck, and Julianne copied both emails, which included the same content. Have you ever thought of getting tested for sexually transmitted diseases? They are still in the Hilton. I was nervously anticipating Renee's call. She lived up to her reputation. Not even a minute later, Lonnie. It could not have gone better. "I will send you the video." They sat together. Marty went by and informed them of your delay. They were laughing and giggling when their phones went off. They watched the video that you sent. Elaine went completely wild. Julianne attempted to stand up but fainted. "If I were you, I'd stay low for a bit." Elaine did not mince words. "You're in deep trouble. Renee, I owe you so much. Send me your bill." After getting Renee's restaurant video, I opened my office door slightly and contacted Anastasia. "Honey, your mother and sister are having some problems in their marriage." When Anastasia joined me, I commented, "I suppose we'll see if their husbands spoil them, and their intimacy grows to new heights. Take a peek at the emails and videos I recently sent." Anastasia gasped and murmured, "My God, did they really enter his room?" "Only they know for certain." I organized the situation and had my private investigator create the footage. So far as I know, the young man simply took them to the restaurant. Are you ready to witness how they respond when they watched the sent video? "Yes, show me, show me." Anastasia's nipples were firm and she laughed so hard tears formed in her eyes. She stared at me, took off her sweater, and let her bra fall on the floor. Her sweatpants and panties followed suit. "Thank you. Mom appears to be plotting your downfall. Now come down here and get your reward." It was as intense as any reunion or tenderness we had ever experienced. After her intense ride on top, which brought me to my first climax, I responded by pleasuring her until she hit her peak. We hugged briefly before she quickly responded to my arousal with her lips and hands. Until I was ready for another round. Anastasia moved to a different position and assumed the doggy style, which is a favorite of mine, because I enjoy toying with her breasts while she stimulates herself and experiences pleasure tremors. I reached another peak before rolling aside. Anastasia brought herself to another climax with her fingers as we slept together, interrupted by constant phone calls. Reality intervened when we confronted the repercussions of our deeds. We cuddled till I felt ready for more. After a long session, I unleashed my third load into Anastasia's hungry center. The doorbell rang, presenting Elaine and Jeremy, whose anxious posture warned of problems. "What is your father's number? Please wait while I grab my phone." The ringtone filled the air as we watched Jeremy pick up his phone. "Hello, we're at your place. When are you going to get here?" Before we meet, we hear from Lonnie's father. Escalation, regarding what they talked to Anastasia into, "I'll fill you in later." I ended the call and we noticed that as Jeremy turned to face Elaine, her posture slouched. Then Jeremy launched an intensive verbal onslaught. He met her face to face, his eyes blazing with rage. Following his rage, he rushed off and got into his truck, locked the doors and driving away. While Elaine fumbled to open the passenger door, she burst into sobs as Jeremy drove away. After that, we changed and sat in the kitchen, exchanging texts and voicemails with everyone involved. It became clear that they not only misunderstood my attitude, but also had little knowledge of their own husbands' reactions. How much longer will we put Jeremy and Chuck through this? Wait, I was thinking of texting Chuck to ask Julianne what she did to you. And I followed through on that plan. But shouldn't we tell them their wives did not cheat? They did not. You mentioned they merely went to the restaurant. But recall when you initially saw the footage. You wondered if they actually went inside his room. Did they call me to clarify that it was a joke? She replied with a bent head, "No." "Okay, here's what we'll do. Let's meet for dinner tomorrow night. I never want those two women in my house again. We will go to a pizza establishment, but Lonnie, I interrupted her with my raised hand. This discussion has concluded. We made it to the Pizza Hut parking lot well ahead of schedule. I have a paper for Jeremy and Chuck that contained the person's contact information. Anastasia and I sought polygraph tests, STD tests, and marriage counseling. Another sheet included the questions we had prepared for the polygraph test. I did, however, bring some pepper spray as a precaution. It might be overkill. While we waited, we ordered pizza. Jeremy and Elaine entered with inscrutable expressions and sat opposite Anastasia. Chuck and Julianne later joined, bringing the total to 6. The pizzas arrived as the waiter was taking drink orders. Dig in, everyone. The pizza is on us. After the beverages were brought, I started my plan speech. Apologies will never enough for what you did, ladies. Anastasia and I are resolved to go forward. We had polygraph testing, STD screens, signed a post-nuptial agreement, and began marriage counseling. I've included all of the contact information on these sheets. I gave copies to Jeremy and Chuck. I recommend that you follow our path. Here is the list of questions we gave to the polygraph examiners. Jeremy and Chuck both received copies. Julianne had a troubled expression on her face. Julianne, you seem to be in turmoil. Not interested in getting a lie detector test? Chuck's glance at Julianne revealed a steely determination. You will absolutely take the test. There was little casual chat that evening. Whenever somebody brought up the topic of the day, I deflected, claiming I wouldn't be answering any questions. If you're having trouble in your marriage, I recommend that you follow the steps Anastasia and I took to rebuild ours. I settled our bill and prepared to depart. One more thing, Elaine and Julia. I never want to see you in my home again. Anastasia may attend your family functions, but don't be surprised if this is our final time. In the same room. A week later, Chuck called to give his temporary address. Julian's polygraph returned negative results. We avoided asking for details and he didn't provide any. My former swagger about family reunions disappeared when I discovered Jeremy waiting on my porch. Lonnie, I heard you mention family gatherings. But it would be really appreciated if you and Anastasia could join us for breakfast on Sunday morning. I can't truly enjoy this victory unless you're present. We both passed the polygraph. I can only imagine the agony you had. It turned my stomach upside down. But I only had to deal with it for a few days. Please join us this Sunday with a handshake. I was welcomed back into the family. Sunday ended up being a good day. However, Jeremy made care to subtly remind Elaine of her previous acts by making she wear the same clothing from the lunch video. Elaine's normally dominant demeanor was significantly subdued. Her status as matriarch of the home has been called into question, with Jeremy now asserting power. Anytime Elaine attempted to speak up, he respectfully silenced her. Eleanor, our guests are already aware of your intellectual prowess. Why don't you just sit there and be with us? And Anastasia then offered, Dad, do you want to view the original video, can I? I checked my emails. I began by saying, here you go, Jeremy. Following this, I'll show you the trailers I had to choose from. As we see numerous trailers, Jeremy commented, I'm glad you didn't choose this one. I could have been tempted to get my gun and kill her when she got home. He was alluding to a scene in which Marty appeared with his back to the camera, grasping a fistful of hair that reached towards his rear end. At first glance, he appeared to be getting a blowjob, but it turned out he was holding a wig that matched both Elaine and Julianne's hair colors. Elaine finally ended her quiet. Can I see it too? After viewing it, she said, Melanie, thank you for not selecting that one. You definitely outsmarted us. We deserved it. I'm truly sorry. I just nodded in answer. Here's another for you to look at. This shows that both of them received the emails that day. Jeremy gave a hearty laugh. Now, sweetheart, you did not really mean it when you said you wanted Lonnie dead, did you? Elaine smugly shrugged his shoulders. Perhaps later. When we got home, Anastasia and I had a very satisfying afternoon. Chuck annulled his marriage to Julianne, citing the adultery clause in their prenuptial agreement. They sold their home, and now Julianne lives in a one-bedroom apartment. Chuck has attended several of our neighborhood potluck dinners. Elaine has regular communication with Anastasia. If Jeremy extends an invitation, we attend family events. Julianne's first time attending. I was unsure about what to expect. Jeremy made sure we were all informed. His condition for Julianne's invitation was that she dress as Amy. Despite her objections, she looked as dazzling as ever. Foolish, yet unquestionably gorgeous. Anastasia, in my opinion, is equally beautiful. During the conversation, Jeremy said, Lonnie, be grateful that Anastasia only pretended to have an affair out of love for you. It appears that we cannot say the same of her promiscuous sibling. Julianne fled the table in tears. I was proud that Jeremy had the fortitude to speak the truth. Julianne has yet to sincerely apologize. Jeremy and I talk candidly about my career. And as an engineer, he provides useful insights and questions that I bring back to the office. He continues to limit Elaine's participation In conversations, allowing Anastasia to express herself more freely at family events. Anastasia has dedicated a lot of time to her poetry, publishing several pieces online, and learning how to deal with the public's severe criticism. Though their plot did not go as planned, their small scheme eventually enhanced our friendship. Here is the next story. I recall reading that in a huge survey, over 90% of people claimed to have stated the same thing after a car incident. It was not a multiple choice question. Rather, it required filling in the blanks. Perhaps it wasn't the best moment to find humor in this circumstance, but I found myself agreeing with the majority. It dawned on me that this was the first time I was the cause of an accident. Previously, I was the one who was smacked in the face by the airbag during impact. Surprisingly, I felt no pain. A couple of silver linings. There was a strong odor of radiator fluid, indicating possible damage. And I also detected a whiff of brake fluid. Surprisingly, I did not feel bewildered. The actuality of the scenario did not meet my expectations. As I sat there thinking about it, I realized I hadn't really anticipated how it would play out. On the good side, there was no odor of fuel or smoke. Although my truck had stopped running, it appeared that returning to work was out of the question. I had a nagging feeling that my truck would smash with the wall, breaking glass everywhere. Did it happen that way? Hell no, it was much worse. My truck not only crashed into the wall, but it also plowed straight through totally inside. If I could find a mirror, I'd see how far I'd gotten into the room. However, with my face crushed against the airbag, visibility was completely obscured. I had no idea how much time had elapsed when a concerned voice asked whether I was wounded. How was I expected to respond with my lips on the airbag? The disturbance escalated and a woman yelled, "People are injured, my God, this is horrible." She clearly wasn't referring to me, which was a relief. Sirens sounded in the distance. Compared to ambulances, fire vehicles make a unique sound. I assumed one of each was about to arrive on the scene. It was chaotic. They were giving priority to the badly injured while they used a chain and a winch to drag my truck back into the bright midday sun. I came out with only minor scratches and bruises. Another ambulance was loading a stretcher. The first one had left a few minutes earlier. After a pat down, they pushed me shackled into the back of a police car. Losing control of your truck appears to be a risky proposition. At least I wasn't an immigrant facing a possible 110-year prison sentence. I'm not sure why they didn't take me away right away, but it allowed me time to survey the damage. My truck had smashed through the wall, destroying the door, window, and air conditioner. It did not stop until it had shoved the bed and box springs into the bathroom. Rooms 6 and 10 appeared unharmed. However, room 8 was now out of operation. At least it was a single-story structure. My rage erupted when I noticed Joe lingering near the motel. I may not be a genius, but I felt relieved. I intervened. I refused to communicate with the cops. Surprisingly, the orange jumpsuit was less uncomfortable than I had feared. The court, however, was. I wonder how the residents of room 8 are doing. As I expected, I assumed the truck would simply crash through the window. Nevertheless, I couldn't stop smiling. Please excuse my lack of etiquette. I'm Vincent Clancy. I'm 23 years old and married to Ginny, a woman my age. After high school, we made several mistakes and did not accomplish much. We decided to marry despite the fact that we didn't have an obvious baby bump yet. Ginny suffered a miscarriage 2 months later. Although it hurt me, Ginny took it very personally. After 6 months of counseling, we agreed to put off trying for a baby for a few years. However, her mood swings continue to this day. Furthermore, our abrupt wedding interrupted our intentions to attend college. Instead of getting a degree, I got a job to learn as an electrician. Ginny got work as a casual laborer, frequently serving as a receptionist. Her tasks range from one day to a week when someone goes on vacation. During my high school years, I played football without major embarrassments. Ginny, one of the 6 basketball cheerleaders, dutifully attended all of my football games. And I responded by cheering for her at every basketball game. Ginny's objective was likely to show her support for me. But my motivation was to protect her from unwelcome attention. The basketball players and their cronies were continuously attempting to win her over. But none of them were successful in changing my opinion. Joe Clark was the standout player on the basketball squad. Although we didn't have any close relationships or mutual friends, our social circles rarely crossed. Nonetheless, Joe occasionally made sexual remarks to Ginny, which she dismissed with a laugh, as someone prone to envy. I found it difficult to remain unaffected by his comments while receiving honorable mention for the All-State team. Joe's accolades was limited to second-team All-Conference, owing primarily to our basketball team's poor performance. Despite this, Joe received a scholarship for books and meals from a nearby Division I college, and participated in summer leagues on campus following graduation. To my amazement, he gained playing time once the season started. When he is not surrounded by turnover-prone colleagues, he demonstrates that he is a solid player. Joe frequently invited his buddies back for events like homecoming, including one particularly arrogant man named Nolan Larson, who enjoyed godlike status due to his team's postseason playoff competitiveness. Despite the fact that Ginny was married, Nolan continued to flirt with her, sometimes in my presence. Ginny shrugged it off, laughing. Occasionally, I had to intercede, which appeared to irritate Ginny. Joe and Nolan appeared to be inseparable. They were frequently seen together during Joe's travels to our town. To prevent their conduct, I usually made sure we were busy elsewhere. While homecoming only lasted a weekend, Ginny and I had frequent conflicts over our longer summer vacations. Are you my husband or my guardian? I am capable of taking care of myself. Those guys are simply loud mouths. Can we drop it? It's easier said than done if you're prone to envy. Ginny's obvious attractiveness exacerbated the frustration. Throwing attention even when line dancing. Proud? Yes. Are you also jealous? Yes. Crazy? Didn't think so. However, the situation is currently unsettled. Hello, Mr. Clancy. I am Scott Jensen. You have been assigned a lawyer for this court proceeding, said a young man not much older than me. He might be a few years older than me. The clock indicates that it is almost 2 o'clock. So, good afternoon, Scott. You can call me Vince. How much do you remember about the truck accident, Vince? Everything. Did you intend to trigger the crash? Not really. I simply wanted to intimidate them. I had no idea a truck going at that speed could create such considerable damage. According to the police report, you were traveling at approximately 30 miles per hour when you crashed with the motel room. That is not considered slow. Perhaps my rage caused me to accelerate. But I did not intend to smash through the wall. That should indicate something implausible. Currently, you are accused with 2 counts of vehicular assault. If Mr. Larson dies, the accusations against him may be upgraded to attempted murder. Wow. Sounds quite serious. Yeah, that air conditioner you hurled ended up hitting Mr. Larson in the lower back. He suffered numerous inside injuries, but it may have saved their lives. It knocked them off the bed just before your truck nailed them to the wall with the mattress. How is your wife doing? You mean Mrs. Larson? Well, Mr. Larson's influence on her damaged some facial bones. She's missing most of her front teeth. Mr. Larson has some major scars presently, if you get my drift. That is unfortunate. Aside from that, they're largely fine. Not even close. They each had several shattered bones. When the truck pushed everything into the bathroom, the mattress made little difference. Mr. Larson might perhaps become paralyzed. I would pretend to be upset, but I'm not feeling it, Scott. I got it. But how did you know they were in the room? I observed the room as they entered and closed the door. Number 8, are you still getting the hang of it, Scott? I am becoming a little agitated now. Let me rephrase, how did you know you needed to be there at that exact time? I had planned to surprise Jenny with a bouquet of flowers on our anniversary, and to invite her out to lunch if she had time. She was covering for someone on maternity leave with a position that had no specified end date. As I turned the corner, I saw her standing outside her office building, waiting for the traffic signal to change. She climbed into a beautiful sports car that had just pulled up. I trailed, following them. So, what occurred in the motel? Have you confronted them? Jenny got out of their automobile when it came to a stop near the check-in area. I was still waiting for a chance to turn into the parking lot off the main road. The sports automobile was parked around the premises, so I followed suit. Jenny exited the office a few minutes later and went to room number 8. He joined her soon after she arrived. The rest, as they say, was history. So, you're not sure what they were doing? Scott, are you really new to this? Do you think they had planned a surprise anniversary meal for me? Sloppy seconds. Vince, I'm here to help you, but I need all of the details. How long did you wait inside your truck before confronting them? I waited for a few minutes, I suppose. Then wrath blurred my judgment. I lost control. No excuses. Complete meltdown. As I already stated, I simply wanted to scare them. Jenny gradually awoke from her extended sleep, jotting down her thoughts on the notebook provided by the nurse. Where am I now? What happened? Mrs. Clancy, you are at mercy, General. A truck slammed into your room, resulting in multiple fractured bones and internal damage. The doctor has sedated you. If you are still experiencing discomfort, we can alter your medication. How do you feel? Jenny immediately jotted down her next inquiries. My face is covered in bandages and my mouth is immobile. Why am I restrained? I am unable to move my legs or my other arm. Your arm and legs are in casts. In fact, you're wearing a full body cast. When you're ready, your face will be tightly wrapped and your mouth wired shut. A detective needs to ask you a few questions. Should I call him? She scribbled back. Yes, several hours have passed. Hello, Mrs. Clancy. I'm Detective Green. How's your memory? She replied with a faded pencil. Not too good, I suppose. I don't remember the accident. The nurse claimed that I was hit by a truck. What do you remember from Tuesday morning? She scribbled slowly. Do you mean today? Today is actually Friday. You have been here for 10 days. I think they put you in a medically induced coma with trembling hands. My God, I dressed a little nicer and headed to work. What did you do for lunch? After a brief hesitation, I went for lunch with a friend. And who is this friend? Throwing him under the bus? Nolan Larson. Where did you two eat lunch? I can't remember. Does the name Humpty Motel ring familiar? Tears started to saturate the bandages. I hired a room while Nolan was parked. Is that when I got hit by the truck? Do you wish? No. You were in the room with Mr. Larson when the truck crashed into it. More scratches. Somebody lost control of their truck. Not exactly. It appears that your short encounter was not the anniversary surprise your husband expected. With trembling cast. My anniversary? God. So your hubby did not endorse this strategy beforehand? Quickly. No, that's all I have right now. Good luck with your rehabilitation, Mr. Larson. Can you hear me? The nurse took a quick peek at the doctor. He hasn't reacted since being told about his spinal injuries. And that he will never be able to walk again. The physician said that certainly ended his promising career abruptly. According to the nurses, getting affection from a married lady comes at a high price. My friends and family volunteered to pay my bail. I'll go once this chaotic ordeal is over. The threats to my life, which are putting an end to Nolan's career, are not worth keeping out of jail until my trial. I'll finish my time and then disappear. Try to catch me if you can. Jenny paid a visit about 10 weeks after the incident occurred. She arrived in a wheelchair but managed to get to the visitor's room on crutches. Jenny, you appear to be doing well. Her tone was bland. I apologize for causing all of this. Did you actually mean to injure me physically? No, I only wanted to scare you and end your affair. How was your throat? That is not humorous, Vince. You need to believe me. I've never cheated on you before. And you halted it before it got too far. How did you find out? I had purchased some flowers for our anniversary. And intended to surprise you at work if you wanted out. Why didn't you simply say it? I did not want to leave. I'm not sure why I did it. He was a star and I believed his falsehoods. You are aware that he is currently incapacitated, correct? Yes, I heard. Maybe you should register him for the Special Olympics. You two would make an excellent team for the modified potato sack race. I guess I deserve it. I just wanted to apologize for everything. I hope your trial runs nicely. You seem to have quite the agenda that afternoon while I was in the squad car. I saw Joe Clark looking around. How did he know you were going to be there? Vince, I'm deeply sorry. She stated this as tears streamed down her cheeks. To be honest, I was no longer jealous. When my feelings for Jenny evaporated, I stopped caring about her activities or who she was involved with. I felt annoyed at myself for being so ignorant. Hey, if you can find where they told my truck. The flowers I purchased for our anniversary are probably still in the front seat. I heard you took a bite out of the huge star. How was it? Jenny didn't respond. Instead, she made a foul gesture before getting up and limping back to her wheelchair. Visitors are always appreciated. They uplift your spirits. The weeks leading up to my trial appeared to merge together. I turned down all offers of bail. Just days before the trial, I agreed to a plea agreement. The idea of a year in prison appeared better to the severe sentence I may face. If the jury found me guilty of attempted murder after the basketball team lost, I received nasty letters after they missed the playoffs. I even got death threats. This is ludicrous. It's only a game. One of Scott's acquaintances started divorce proceedings on my behalf. It was under process and all essential signatures had been gathered. I would soon be single. My lawyer unexpectedly showed up. Scott, it has been a while. How does my case look? Well, the district attorney is offering time served in 2 years of parole. Tell Scott that as soon as I am released, I want to relocate. With continual death threats, parole will not suffice. Show him the letters. Consider negotiating something. The next week, I was sent to a processing center to complete the remainder of my reduced term for the felony to which I had pled guilty. I'd be out in a few weeks, leaving the state on the same day. With my cash depleted, labeled a criminal. And no chance of a solid credit score for years. The future looked bleak. Jenny paid me another visit a few days before my planned release. She walked with a little limp, but otherwise appeared normal. What brought you here, Jenny? We are now divorced, I commented. My last appointment did not go as expected. I would like to apologize once more. She said, if it weren't for me, you wouldn't be here. So, Jenny, I'm in prison because I couldn't manage my fury. That is on me. I admit I lost control. I could have just left, filed for divorce or disappeared. But I'm serving time for my deeds. I will not blame anyone else, I responded. Still, you were upset about what I was doing. Do you like my new teeth? She asked. As beautiful as ever. How about your boyfriends? I inquired. There's no need to be mean. I try to ignore any discussions or rumors regarding them. If I could make one wish, it would be for you to arrive with your flowers 10 minutes early. We'd still be together. And I wouldn't have made the worst mistake of my life. She admitted while stroking Jenny. However, it appears that the journals you are praying to are not in the wish-granting business. Where do you work now? I asked. I work full-time as a receptionist at stonemasonry. The same routine every day. No husband is waiting for me at home, it was all my fault. What are your plans after being released? She inquired. I am leaving the state. I still get hate mail weekly for wrecking Nolan's career. I'll probably attempt to stay low for a bit, I responded. Is there any room in your plans for me? She asked. Please answer this question. Why did you throw us away? I countered. I wish I could offer you a satisfactory explanation. But I do not believe I can, she said. And that's why I just want to go and start over on my own. But thank you for your offer. Remembering the positive moments has helped me get through this situation. I responded. Well, if you change your mind, you know where to find me. You're always welcome in my arms, she said quietly. Yes, right, until next time. Thanks, but no thanks, I responded. Jenny's tears slowly poured down her cheeks. The van ride to the downtown bus station took place on a dreary day, with dry streets that contrasted with the still moist sidewalks, mirroring my inner mood wonderfully. I used my bus fare to travel to the city where my parents lived. They had arranged for me to receive an old truck and a few $100, which was a generous gesture given their financial circumstances. 3 days and 2 states later, my cash were exhausted. Despite obtaining odd employment, the pay was insufficient for food and housing. Moving further in my beat-up truck, I resorted to begging on street corners to save enough money to buy a basic phone. Its major goal was to seek for work openings online, which led me to a position with a temporary construction company in need of an electrician. We accept cash payments on a daily basis. Nevertheless, I made relationships with new acquaintances. My once extroverted personality diminished. I temporarily stayed in a low-cost hotel room where the neighboring woman was soliciting, which piqued my interest. However, I must stress that this is not a solicitation, but rather a possible customer. If only funds weren't so tight. She spotted me watching one evening and softly opened her robe ready for action. Only if you accept IOUs. She laughed. Let me think about it. No, so I guess I don't have much to give if you don't require an electrician. Too awful. You seem quite fit. I admire a man who can take leadership. I'll remember that in the future. Actually, one of my clients mentioned a project that involved sparks. I am unable to communicate right now. I need to get ready for my next appointment. I chuckled. We were just anonymous people trying to make it through the night. Sleep was elusive as I imagined myself with her. Damn, I needed action. A few days later, I saw the escort again. She gave me a piece of paper. I told my client that I knew an electrician. Here is the number. Thanks. You did not have to do that. I understand. See you later. She said this as she entered her modern sedan and drove away. I needed to ask my colleagues at work about the rates for miscellaneous tasks. Armed with this information, I dialed the number. To my astonishment, a woman picked up. No, I certainly don't want this woman to discover that her husband was with a prostitute. Hi there. I got your number from a friend. I heard you're looking for an electrician. Yeah. What are your rates and when are you available? Well, I typically work Monday to Friday until around 6. For small jobs, I can do evenings, otherwise weekends. Charging by the day is more cost-effective than hourly. I explained, hoping she wouldn't hang up. As I mentioned, rates. We introduced ourselves. She was Deb. I noted down her address. I agreed to swing by on Saturday morning to assess the job. Arriving on Saturday, I was surprised to find it was a gated community. After confirming my arrival, I navigated through to her address. Only one car in the garage, so her husband must be out golfing or something. Deb seemed to be around my mother's age, and I noticed she wasn't wearing any rings. Something didn't quite add up. She needed the ground fault outlet in the master bath replaced and wanted some light switches changed to motion sensors. There were pictures of young adults on her wall, but none with a father figure. I noticed only one pillow on her bed. It dawned on me that there might not be a husband in the picture after all. I provided Deb with an estimate and she paid me in advance to purchase the necessary materials. After a quick trip to Lowe's, I finished the job well before lunchtime. While I was working, Deb kindly brought me a soda and a tray of cookies. "Which of my acquaintances informed you that I needed an electrician?" Deb inquired. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Should I mention that it was a woman I met at the questionable motel where I currently reside? I don't know her name. She overheard me discussing my profession as an electrician and we briefly conversed. "She's a strawberry blonde around 5'5", I responded. "I see, I have some friends who might be interested in your services. Would you mind if I passed along your contact information?" Deb asked. "That would be fantastic. I'm in dire need of funds at the moment," I admitted. "What other skills do you possess?" Deb asked playfully with a hint of mischief in her eyes. Now thoroughly confused, I wondered if she was friends with the woman from the motel. Or perhaps even romantically interested in me. My cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Attempting to reciprocate the flirtation, I replied, "I'm young and not afraid to break a sweat." Deb chuckled at my response. "I'll be sure to inform them," she said, smiling. My imagination desired more, but I hastily stashed the cash into my jeans and drove off. Not long after I received a call from an unfamiliar number, then speaking. "Hey, glad I reached you. Deb, pass me your number. I live a couple of doors down from her. Could you swing by?" A female voice asked. "Yeah, I'm just grabbing a quick bite." "What's your address?" After committing her address to memory, I finished my sandwich and headed over. It took some time to navigate past the security checkpoint, since I only had an address, not a name. Eventually, I was granted entry in the garage. 2 cars were parked with their doors wide open. I opted to park on the street. My beat-up car was undoubtedly the savviest vehicle in the neighborhood. When I timidly knocked on her door, I was met by a very cute, albeit young lady. "You called about an odd job." She rolled her eyes. "Mom, it's for you." With that, she turned and left me standing there. When the lady of the house arrived, I could see the resemblance. "You must be Vince. Do you handle tasks like replacing ceiling fans and installing motion-detecting light switches? And I need more outlets in the garage." Yes, and yes. Have I covered everything?" She smiled broadly. "Then come this way." After noting down her list of requests, Sai jokingly asked, "Have you purchased everything you want installed? By the way, should I just call you mom of the eye-rolling daughter?" She chuckled in response. "My name's Nancy." "That's Jolene. She's waiting for her boyfriend and getting very annoyed." "Sorry about that." "No, I haven't bought anything yet." "We can head to Lowe's and shop if you'd like." "And what's the cost for installation?" I quickly estimated the costs and handed her the figures. "Let's go then. Would you like to drive?" "Sure." However, her willingness to drive changed when she saw my old car. "I'll drive. We can fit everything in my trunk and back seat." "Well, if you insist. Haven't ridden in a car as nice as yours in a long time, if ever." It took me until sundown to complete her projects. Jolene kept watching me, still upset about being stood up by her boyfriend. Between the two jobs, I made close to $1,000 after adding tips to my quotes. If you've never relied solely on the cash in your pocket, day in and day out, you can't fully grasp the fear of being robbed when you have some money on you. I didn't sleep well, suspecting that everyone could somehow tell that I had $1,000 in my pockets just by looking at me. My first stop on Monday would be to open a checking account and get a debit card. Having some funds in my bank account, I decided to venture out on Monday night. Through the idea of paying an escort for sex excited me. I couldn't bring myself to do it. Instead, I headed to the local bar and took a seat at the counter. I wasn't actively seeking company, but there were women there who were. Are you planning to stare at your drink all night? Some of us have made an effort to look good and you haven't even glanced our way, said a woman as I looked up and noticed her. I pretended to appraise her appearance. Well, you certainly look very nice. She seemed to expect more from me. After a moment's pause, she responded. Is that all? Not going to ask me to dance or buy me a drink? Nah, it seems like you're on the hunt. I figured I'd let you take charge. She rolled her eyes and turned back to her friends. I imagined she was telling them what a jerk I was. I had only come in for a drink and to wallow in self-pity. Can't a guy do that without being hit on? About 30 minutes later, the only woman not dancing walked over and sat beside me. You're not checking out the guy, so I'm guessing you're dealing with women trouble, she remarked. Nope, not anymore. So what's on your mind? I'd rather not talk about it. I'm just enjoying my beer in the scenery. What about you? My friends and I like coming here to drink and dance. Guys always think they're going to get lucky. But that's not why we're here. Don't get me wrong. There are plenty of women looking for some excitement, even married ones. If you're into a bit of risk in a small town like this, who would have thought such activities happened at night? We don't see ourselves as a small town. So you must be one of those big city slickers. Yeah, I suppose. I never really got into the nightclub scene. Why is that? You're not bad to look at. I got married early. Money was tight, so our nights out were spent at friends' parties or at the movies. Didn't work out, I presume, since I don't see a ring. Bingo. Well, I came here to dance. And if you're not going to ask me, I'll catch up with you later. Ashley is my name. I'm Vince. Nice chatting with you, Ashley. I seem to be getting good at making women roll their eyes and shake their heads in disbelief. As I lay in bed that night, I realized it wasn't sex that I desired. It was companionship. Just talking with Ashley had lifted my spirits. I became somewhat of a regular at the local bar, having dinner there almost every evening. I wasn't looking to hook up just to talk. The next time Ashley and her friends came in, I asked her to dance. Although invited to join them at their table, I declined. Conflicting emotions had me wondering which way was up. I received another referral call from the work I'd done for Deb. This lady lived in a different part of town. My Saturday morning was now booked on the following Friday evening. I found myself perched on a bar stool, nibbling on a mix of pickles, hard-boiled eggs, and pretzels. When I felt a tap on my shoulder, glancing up into the mirror, I spotted her standing there. Hey, Ashley, where's your group? I inquired. They're tending to the horses. Grab your meal and join me at a table, she instructed, turning to leave. Her tone sounded more like a command than a suggestion, so I complied. Can I get you a drink? I asked as I settled into my seat. No thanks. I'm aware money's tight for you, so I'll buy my own, she replied. And how do you know about my financial situation? I questioned. Well, let's see. Your attire, your car, your choice of food. Need I continue? She retorted. Busted. I lead a simple life now, I admit it. Let's get acquainted. I have a college degree, but find myself underutilized at the warehouse distribution center. I had to choose between moving away or making do here until something or someone came along. I'm not married. Never have been no steady boyfriend. Your turn, she disclosed. I got my high school girlfriend pregnant and missed out on college. We rushed into marriage, but she miscarried. Later, I caught her entering a motel and drove my truck right into the same room. Ended up spending some time in prison since the guy is now paralyzed. Got divorced while serving time. I confessed. Seriously? She exclaimed. I scrolled through my phone searching the internet for the story. Then passed it to her to read. After a moment, she returned it. So? Still interested in getting to know each other? I inquired as she scrutinized my expression. Must have been quite a shock. You think? Surprisingly, I never intended to hurt them. But the law didn't see it that way. My heart turned to ice in that prison cell. Been out for about a month now. Looks can be deceiving. Anything else I should be aware of? I do electrical work for a guy who pays me cash. Lately, I've been taking on odd jobs on weekends for some extra money. Never had any run-ins with the law. Aside from the incident with your ex, nope. Not even a traffic ticket. I lost control that day and paid a heavy price. How much are you planning to spend here tonight? About 20. Why? Let's go to the thrift store and get you some decent clothes. The devil and angel on my shoulders were in fierce debate. Woman trouble. Woman trouble. I accepted her offer. She drove. Why are you doing this? Because you won't do it for yourself. You're too young. Your life's just beginning. And it's time to move forward. And what's in it for you? If I still think you're a decent guy, I might ask you to take me out. Well, I ended up spending $30 that night. But got several shirts and a couple of pairs of pants. Ashley drove me back to my car. As I got out, I said, "Thank you, Ashley. Can I take you out sometime? Thought you'd never ask where one of your new outfits. And meet me at the movie theater in the mall. Tomorrow night at 6. It was a restless night of tossing and turning. As per my usual routine, I took on an odd job on Saturday morning. Despite having nearly $1,600 in the bank, I set aside $150 for the evening ahead. By 4 p.m., I was ready to go, but I realized that the only pair of shoes I owned looked awkward with my upgraded jeans. So I made a trip back to the thrift store and managed to find a decent pair for less than $10. What I thought was a one-on-one date turned out to be a double date. Ashley arrived with her friend and her date, which perhaps wasn't unexpected given my past as a convicted felon. Despite feeling somewhat excluded from their conversations, filled with college memories, I still enjoyed the movie and drinks afterwards. Ashley seemed oblivious to my discomfort, although I appreciated the peck on the lips. It was the hug that I truly cherished. It was the simple gesture I had missed the most. Before parting ways, I slipped Ashley a piece of paper with a brief note and my phone number on it. You have my number. I don't have yours. Call me if I haven't scared you away, I said. She whispered, I will, as she tucked the paper into her cleavage. Initially, I was pleased with how things were progressing, but it didn't last. On Tuesday night, while filling up my truck with gas, I spotted Ashley walking arm in arm with another guy into a nearby restaurant. Although our relationship had only been platonic, I found myself overwhelmed with emotions. The anger, heartache, and feelings of helplessness all came back. Just when I thought I had moved on from the pain caused by Ginny, her memory stabbed me once again. My fight-or-flight response kicked in and I made the decision that I needed to find a better situation elsewhere. I wasn't prepared for any sort of relationship, and it wasn't Ashley's fault, since my motel room was booked until Friday. I had a few days to figure out where to go next. The decision became clear when the person I was working for mentioned they knew someone who needed an electrician by Friday morning. I was on the road with 500 miles ahead of me. Without much thought, I picked up my phone while driving. "Hey Vince, where have you been? I've taken a job in another city since you never called. I couldn't inform you about my departure. Thanks for helping me break out of my rut. When will you be back? I don't think I will, but I'll add you to my contacts, just in case our paths cross again." Her voice sounded somber, maybe hurt. I suppose I should have reached out sooner. "No worries. I appreciated the time we spent together." After a few more minutes of reminiscing, my time with Ashley came to an end. Although my parents wished for me to come home during the holidays, they understood why it wasn't the best choice for me in the following years. Sooner or later, another talented basketball player would emerge, and memories of Nolan would fade into history. I went out with a few women and even attended a swap party with one of them. I enjoyed the variety of experiences, but it hindered any desire to spend more time with any single person. Being reduced to someone's mere companion at a party was disheartening, cold fish. That's what one of my dates labeled me. I had safeguarded my heart, keeping it securely hidden away. Just like keeping a winning horse out of competitions. Keeping my heart out of sight. In short, it remained unscathed. It took 3 years before I visited my parents again. Things were going smoothly, allowing me to afford a flight home. With the basketball team making the playoffs, it felt safer. Nobody brought up Ginny, for which I was grateful. The return flight was uneventful, and I even engaged in conversation with a woman my age on the plane. However, no names or phone numbers were exchanged. "My name is Heather and I'm employed at the cafeteria of a large office building downtown just off Broadway. I'm currently single as I haven't encountered Mr. Right yet. There's this intriguing loner who frequents the cafeteria daily without fail. He always grabs a slice of cherry pie. His name tag reads Vince. And although he works for the investment bank, his attire doesn't scream banker. There's just something about him that piques my interest." Noticing Vince, his lack of rings, I decided to take a chance. One day as he was returning his tray, I concocted an excuse to linger. When he approached, I discreetly passed him a note with my phone number and a simple message. "Call me sometime, Heather." He smiled and I reciprocated before he nodded in acknowledgement. We arranged to meet for dinner a few nights later. Nothing extravagant. Just a cafe near my place. Our conversation was revealing. Vince confessed to working as an electrician and handyman for the investment firm. But the bombshell was his past conviction as a felon, which he revealed through an article on his phone. "Vince, this happened 4 years ago. Do you still miss her?" I inquired. "Not really," he replied. "So why is someone like you without a girlfriend?" I pressed risk versus reward. If I open up and get hurt again, will I handle it gracefully? Last time I tried, even though we hadn't even kissed, I caught her with another guy and it all came flooding back, he explained. That was 3 years ago, right? I clarified. Yes, since then I'd been avoiding relationships, he admitted. All right, I understand. We'll take things slow. But only if we communicate openly. Misunderstandings could be disastrous, I proposed. But what if I'm still not interested in a relationship, he queried. Then we won't meet for dinner tomorrow or go see a movie afterward, I countered. I could sense his desire in his gaze as he reached across the table. I reciprocated, intertwining our hands. For a moment we sat in silent understanding. See you tomorrow, Vince softly murmured as he left the cafe. Butterflies fluttered within me, hinting that perhaps Vince could indeed be Mr. Right. Was it simple? Not at all. I'm a sociable person, and Vince needed constant reassurance that I belonged to him and no one else. He values cuddling as much as he does sex. I can spend hours reading a book while sitting in his lap as he watches sports. After we became intimate, Vince's possessiveness intensified. It wasn't easy, but we managed to overcome it. Understanding the reasons behind his behavior made it easier for me to accept him. Now, we've been married for a decade. I've declined all dance requests except from his father at our wedding. I don't go out for girls' nights and always invite Vince to join me when I go shopping with friends. We have a 6-year-old daughter and a 3-year-old son. We also experienced a miscarriage in between, which led us to seek counseling. With the help of the counselor, I persuade Vince to attend extra sessions. He's been through a lot, but he's mine. I doubt I find another man as loving as Vince, understanding his past. I remind myself every day never to give him a reason to doubt my love. That expletive we commonly express following a car accident. Thank you for taking the time to hear today's story. If you enjoyed this essay, please like it and subscribe if you have not already. If you have a story to share regarding your or someone else's situation, please do not hesitate to contact me. Take care.